Hey everyone. So thank you so much for coming today. We're always so appreciative of the opportunity to show more of that short-term rental space, show more of the ecosystem on center stage. It's still maturing in so many ways, and we want to shine light on what things are looking like in this day and age in a very rapidly evolving market. I wanted to start by giving the floor back to the three of you for a minute. We have some very different businesses and business models on stage, albeit within that umbrella of the short-term rental sector. Could you go around and give a quick nutshell introduction of what company you represent, what your company does? Start with Margot.
Thanks. So my name is Margot. My company, Hostfully, is a software platform in the short-term rental space. And we service short-term rental property managers with a PMS, property management software. I can say that here because we're in the travel industry. We have two products, our property management platform and digital guidebook product. And we sit in a really interesting spot in the industry because we're integrated with over 40 different software partners, including Airbnb, Booking, and Vrbo. And so we have a really unique viewpoint of what's going on. We manage about 20,000 properties worldwide at Hostfully.
Sure. So I'm Brian Egan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Evolve. At Evolve, we've reimagined property management and vacation rental, both the hospitality and the management side of it. And we're taking an approach that's far more asset light, tech and data driven, and ultimately capital efficient. So for owners, what that means is that you're going to make more money because of our leading edge revenue management capabilities, and you'll keep more of what you make due to our industry low 10% management fee. And for our guests, they're going to get a vetted home that they can have confidence in, and in the rare circumstance where something goes wrong, they know that we'll stand behind it with our Rest Easy promise. So to give you a snapshot, we have about 28,000 properties, or projecting to be 28,000 properties live on the platform as of the end of this year, which makes us the fastest growing management platform in the space, especially given that those are organically acquired, one individual, partnering with one homeowner at a time.
All right, apparently I get a microphone because this thing isn't working. So I'm Jamie Cohen, CFO of Vacasa. Vacasa is a full-service property management company, vacation rental management company, and we manage over 37,000 homes across the United States, Canada, Belize, Costa Rica, and Mexico. And we're really focused on driving revenue for our owners, maximizing revenue through integrated technology and our full service staff and local and national teams. So it's really providing guests with a great experience, maximizing income for our owners, but also having owners be able to just hand us the keys and we'll do everything else. They don't have to worry about any of the housekeeping, maintenance, that side of it.
All right, so we have two property management firms and then a technology side of things up here, all sitting within that short-term rental space. So I think a lot of the Phocuswright audience is familiar with some of the classical hotel models of hospitality with all of its own pros and cons. One of the things that doesn't get discussed nearly enough about inherent challenges of running something like a large portfolio of short-term rentals is the aspect of decentralization. Your portfolios that you have on the property management side, they are dispersed, they are physically scattered from one another, and that can cause all sorts of unique challenges when it comes to things like turnover, when it comes to deploying maintenance, when it comes to having someone visit properties for check-ins, for guest services. I wanted to hear from you individually about how you've seen that type of challenge play out from your perspectives, from your personal experiences, and then also on the solution side, what's being developed in order to really address these sector-specific concerns, especially on the tech end of things. Mm-hmm. You can start with Jamie.
Yeah, I can go. So yes, it is very distributed and scattered, and we're present in markets mostly where there's adequate density for us to be able to support it with our local teams. But really, it all comes with technology, which drives everything, right? So everything from algorithms that predict how long it's going to take to clean a certain house, that help to route and dispatch our local operations folks in the most efficient manner, is what allows us to scale effectively and efficiently. I think the tools that we're developing, such as our smart clean inspection tool that allows us to have people do virtual inspections, or other areas that we're enabling technology to get more leverage and not have to necessarily visit every single home every time, but still be able to maintain that high quality of care. And then you have that positive reinforcement through review scores as well, that we can make sure that we're maintaining high quality.
Ryan?
Down the line. So yeah, I mean, for us, first of all, I think you framed it the right way, which is if you start with the hotel model of operations and you think about the way a 500-key hotel with 3 or 4 room types is operating, and then you try and back into what we do, you're going to find that really frustrating really fast. So for us, we viewed all of that dispersion geographically as a feature and not a bug. I mean, that's what consumers love. Each home is completely unique, and you are often way off the main path. And so for us, we decided to partner locally with service providers to really empower local teams who knew how to service those homes and to make sure that we could vet and verify those homes to make sure that they are complying with our brand standards. So what we do is an inspection on the way in as we're onboarding that home, as we're shooting photography to ensure that it's going to be delivered in a condition that is meeting our brand standards, and then partnering locally with a great service provider. And we found that that's worked really well. And in terms of the technology side, I think there's really just more and more opportunities kind of classically reducing friction, reducing synchronous communications to make them more async, et cetera. But ultimately, I think that the model that we're on is the one that allows us to scale and allows us to serve a lot of homes that are often long-tail markets that aren't going to sit in a densely populated geo market like, say, Phoenix, Scottsdale, where we are now.
It's a little different from my perspective thinking about this question, because our customers actually are boots on the ground. A lot of them are. Sometimes they have 2 different portfolios. Maybe one is in an urban and one is in a rural market, but they actually have people on staff. So they can use technology, and that's one of the reasons why Hostfully has chosen to become a platform versus an all-in-one solution. So we give our customers tons of optionality around what kind of software options they want to use or not. Like, they don't actually have to use any additional software if they don't want to. So I think we're kind of addressing it in a different way. I would say in this way, we have our customers a lot of times have the upper hand because they don't have to scale their operations so largely. But the disadvantage is that there's less standards. And so this is kind of the interesting balance between the smaller scale operator and the larger scale property management companies.
And Brian, you had mentioned before in your response how in so many ways privacy can be an asset. And our research does back that up in a lot of ways, that it's one of those inherent qualities of the rental category that people do look for. But then it also has this flip side, because traditionally in a lot of hospitality environments, those guest-staff interactions have been a really big cornerstone of what it means to have quality guest services. And the nature of short-term rentals is that staff isn't necessarily there. There isn't necessarily kind of that core presence to address things in the same type of way they did before. Are we seeing short-term rentals kind of reframing what guest expectations should be for what hospitality service looks like? Or is this a space where there's continued development to actually catch up to what people want to make things feel more human or make things feel more personal? Yeah, take it away.
Sure. So first of all, I think that this is a trend that is emerging in hospitality broadly. I think that the idea that we're going to define hospitality as being in-person, hands-on, you and I both here, and not leveraging technology is just working against one of the macro factors of our world today. So I really don't see technology as an offset to hospitality in any way. I see it as a pathway to how we can deliver better hospitality and meet the guests where they are. Secondly, when it comes to short-term rental, I don't think the expectation, even in the legacy pre-internet world, was that we were going to have reception desks the way that a hotel would, or that you're going to push a button and someone's going to be in your room in 5 seconds. We at Evolve make sure that we do have a 24/7 local contact. So should anything be needed, there is always going to be somebody who can respond quickly. And of course, our centralized team is also available 24/7. I think hospitality is showing up in lots of ways now. Sometimes It's the way that we go about messaging or SMS with a guest. Sometimes it's getting on the phone. Sometimes it's making sure that the right service provider is dispatched to the house quickly. But I don't see any of that as being, a step back from, a standard of hospitality. I think actually a lot of that represents an increasing level of professionalization in the category relative to where it all sat 10 or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Jamie?
Yeah, I agree. I think that we do have local teams on the ground that are able to service our guests, and depending on the market, that the level of presence is going to differ. Also based on customer preference. Some of them want to be able to use the smart lock to enter into the home without any interaction at all and go about their stay, and then be supported by tools like our mobile app, which allows them to access the Wi-Fi with a touch of the button, access our local teams and communicate with them through our messaging platform. Or if there is a certain circumstance where somebody needs to go in person, we can send that. So I think, to Brian's point, I think that technology is enhancing the hospitality and helping the delivery of that. Not, I don't think it is an either or.
Yeah.
What are the limits? What types of issues should be solved by people as a rule?
I think it really depends. I mean, hospitality is not about tech or people. It's about making somebody feel really comfortable and welcome. They need to feel safe. They need to understand what expectations they should have in advance. They need to be what expectations should be delivered on. And I think that all comes down to knowing your customer and being able to market and effectively target them so that you're attracting the right customers into your rental. I mean, if you can do that using technology, you can do that using people, it doesn't really matter. It's just really about execution. And I think the hotel industry gives us a shining example in a lot of ways of how they've done a good job with certain hotels that are very clear about the expectations that have been set. And I think in vacation rentals, we're all trying to find our way a little bit and figuring out how to parse customers and figure out what kind of guest expectations we should be meeting in the rental. But it doesn't really, in my mind, it's not about tech or not tech at all. Actually, that's sort of like a side point.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to Danny Meyer, one of my icons and heroes. I've never met him, if anybody wants to introduce me, who wrote that hospitality is there when you know that other person, that other company is there with you and not to you, right? Like these things are happening with you and not to you. And I think that's what we're trying to really bring to the entire experience for our Evolve guests. And I think that can be brought out in lots of ways. I mean, ultimately, we want our guests to communicate with us, let's just say live, because they want to, not because they need to, right? We want them to be able to, to have a great stay without interacting with us if that's what they desire. I don't think it's for us to decide. I think ultimately it's up to the customer. And we need to be meeting them where they are and servicing them in the way that works best for them.
Yeah.
Let's talk about consistency, which is often a really hot issue within that short-term rental space. Like we presented before with the Phocuswright data that we have on the sector, there's still quite a few independent players. They're still representing the bulk of units that are available now. And often when there are consumer concerns that with any given rental that they book, they're not exactly sure what they're getting, the industry response to the conversation is that you build up management brands in a way that's going to give them that comfort that they know what they're getting. You drive brand recognition, positive brand associations, lots of brand awareness, and that's how you address it. The issue there that we find with our research is that driving brand awareness and recognition is a marathon and not a sprint. In our 2021 study of short-term rental users, we found that 14% recognize the Vacasa name, 12% recognize the Evolve name, and those are such big players in the management space that you can only imagine what recognition would be like for smaller players. So while branding is such an important strategy for the long term, and I would never want to bash the importance of building up a brand, what's the short-term and the mid-term way that you communicate with guests around product consistency in stays?
Okay.
I mean, I think it starts with, regardless of where the guest comes from, if they come to us directly, if they come to us through one of our, many, many channel partners, that we're providing a great experience. And, that's the communication, that's the cleanliness of the home, that's the upkeep, the safety of the home, right? And so I think all of that is table stakes and really important. Further to that, I think that we continue to leverage technology to make things more consistent. Again, I mentioned our housekeeping inspection app, right, where we can utilize technology to ensure those higher levels of consistency. And then finally, I think the branding element, I agree, it is a marathon, and you have some very, very big players in the space with significant billions of dollars of marketing budgets. I think where we can play in the space is branding in the home and making people know that when they come to a Vacasa home that this is what you can expect, right? This is the experience that you can expect in terms of the cleanliness, the care of the home, the responsiveness of our staff, and the experience that you're going to have in that home. And that is, again, powered by our staff, but also our technology, our mobile app, that sort of thing, where we can provide a branded experience so that you know what you're getting when you're in the home.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd say, first of all, I couldn't agree more with Jamie that a lot of this starts with expectation setting. Starts at the top of the booking funnel, and again, whether it's direct, whether it's through one of our third-party partners, for us, it's right there in the listing descriptions. It's our sort of pillars of our brand standards being that the home has to be safe, it has to be clean, it has to be ready for your arrival, and it ultimately has to be as advertised. And you have to know that if anything is wrong with it, that we're going to stand behind it, that our team's there 24/7, that we have a rest easy promise, right? These are things that scaled brands can provide that are really challenging for the rest of the market. And the reason that they haven't existed in the past is largely because we have not yet lived in this world of scaled brands. And then, Madeline, to your numbers, hey, 12%, we don't represent 12% of the inventory in the market. Maybe we're outperforming, right? I mean, the two of us put together are give or take 70, 75,000 units out of what we both believe are probably, I don't know what your numbers are, but over 2 million just in the domestic US. So, I'd say, I think maybe that is actually an indication that the word's getting out. And Margot, I'm really interested to hear how you think about supporting your property managers on your platform as they think about building direct brands.
Well, I was going to make a joke and say that I think that less than 1% actually know about Hostfully, and I'm okay with that. But I agree with you. I actually think 12 is really high. I mean, I think you're doing great. So
thank you.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. No, I think from our perspective, one of the things that we've been able to help property managers with is, we do offer a direct out-of-the-box bookings website when they work with us, but branding is not about the website. It's not about the logo. It's not about your colors. It's about meeting expectations. So one of the things we've been working with our partners on is getting really specific about amenities. I mean, we can't deliver quality control over those amenities, but being really, really clear about what is in a rental. And I actually think that is speaking more towards younger generations who are willing to go through and sort of check to make sure that I don't know, there's a home stereo system. I was at a party last night with some folks here, and the home stereo system didn't work. And they were like, it said it was in the rental, and it couldn't even turn on.
Take a star off the review.
That's right. That was a perfect example of you got to make sure that it works. But also being really, really clear about what's in the rental with photos, descriptions, and amenities. And it sounds like it's not a big deal, but if you've traveled with a baby and you need a crib and there's not one there, that will screw you. If you have a dog and you need the house to be dog friendly and it's not for whatever reason, that will screw you over when you get there. So I think we're, as an industry, just figuring all this stuff out. And I actually think we're at the beginnings of it. I think there's a long way to go. I think in 5 years, things will be radically different. I think people will be able to self-select more easily because all this stuff will be a little bit more standardized.
I agree. I think in a lot of ways we're writing the rule book now, and the expectation we have to have is this is being figured out today and also tomorrow and probably the day after that.
Yeah, I mean, what we've done, which is really great, is in the last 10 years, not we evolved, just like we, the category, have really gone through a massive mainstreaming process. And we've succeeded in bringing a mainstream consumer into the category, and we have to now meet that mainstream consumer demand and that need and the expectations and the rest. And I think as much as that motion defined the last 10 years, the forward 10 years are really about the refinement of the supply and the inventory that we're bringing to market and ensuring that it is actually ready for that mainstream audience.
Recession is a hot word at this year's Phocuswright. A little bit of a depressing word, but a hot word nonetheless. And it's really interesting looking at it in the short-term rental space because we know that Airbnb is the biggest household name in the short-term rental sector, is a major player to watch here. And Airbnb is very out and very proud about kind of being born into the cradle of the Great Recession. They've almost kind of implied that in many ways recession fueled the short-term rental success and was somewhat a catalyst and not necessarily in opposition. But thinking about how that could affect the market if we wind up going in that economic direction again, things in the short-term rental space don't look today like they did in 2008. There are a lot of very serious differences both on the supply and on the demand side. So when you think about if another economic downturn could happen, where do you draw parallels from the 2008 somewhat success story that happened, and where do you feel like you have to be strategic in a different way with continuing to attract guests and manage affordability and value issues that come with a recession?
Want to go?
I'll jump in. Yeah, I mean, I think that from a recession perspective, there is some built-in, resiliency in the model inherently. And by having a two-sided marketplace, I think you tend to have an aspect where if one side needs you less, the other side needs you more. And so in a world where, in theory, you see maybe less travel demand, I think owners want more income, right? They're also suffering from the overall macroeconomic circumstances, and so perhaps it becomes easier where owners who might own second homes that haven't traditionally rented those out, and there's 3.5 million of those in the US alone, will now start to rent those out, and that's kind of a reason for them to do so. I think on the guest side, though, there's also some resiliency in that we provide better value, right? There's better value on a per home, per bedroom, or per night, per bedroom basis, but then you can stay in and cook. You can share a house with a group of friends. I think just generally it's a more economical way to travel, and also a way to, potentially stay a little bit more local or, within driving distance. So obviously a ton of uncertainty in the overall ecosystem, but I do think that there's reason to believe that just kind of based on the marketplace dynamics, there's some resiliency there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then relative to the last version of this, I think we're much better positioned as a category now to handle it. I mean, just to give you one example, Margot and I were just chatting about, back in 2008, there was no API connectivity. We weren't able to, update rates quickly. We didn't have the kind of business intelligence that we have now that powers these algorithms. So we can react much more swiftly to meet the demand where it is. Because to Jamie's point, we represent value. It's just going to represent, it's obviously going to put some compression on things like rates.
Margot, last word.
Oh, well, I agree. We have like a marketplace with liquidity of supply and demand. So I actually am really optimistic about short-term rentals. And just in terms of running a business through this time, I think it's forcing everybody to really focus on execution. And I love execution. That's why I'm running this company. I know some people love other things about running companies, but I'm excited actually for this next phase of watching really great companies continue to grow.
Great. That's all the time we have today. Thank you so much to everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.